Hello. Been a little bit. Now, I apologize for that. One of the things that I have found out is that I've gotten a little bit contrary in my old age. I don't know if that's the right word for it or not, but that's the word I'm going to use. You know, I know that life's hard, and they say that God won't put more on you than what He believes you can take. But sometimes I feel like I've had more than my fair share, and I've never been one to play the woe is me card, but I've had a lot of tragic things happen in my life, and I'm sure a lot of other people have too. So I'm not trying to discredit anything or like I said, or play that woe is me card, but it's just sometimes it's really hard to keep a good positive attitude whenever you've got a lot of negative things happening in your life and around your life. And a lot of the things I kind of let just roll off my back, and a lot of these things just don't bother me, but there is one that's just really stuck. And I've been told that a lot of times we make our own problems, and I've been blamed for this problem, and at the time I felt I was doing what was best for my family, and some of the other people didn't necessarily agree with me. And as a result, they brought a lawsuit against us, and basically what it boils down to is the HOA in this little subdivision that we live in doesn't like the fact that we put a quote mobile home on our property, and I believe, and we believe that the term mobile home is an outdated term, and it does not apply to what we have, to what our home is. And we've got a manufactured home on our property, and I realized that whenever I bought this property, that I agreed to the fact that there was an HOA and all this and that, but I've kind of got a problem with people telling me that what I can do with a piece of property that I worked hard and to pay for. And now they're trying to tell me what I can and can't do with this piece of property. But basically what it boils down to is, to start with, this lawsuit's been going on for about 4 years now. And, in the beginning, we all believed that, there really wasn't nothing that they could do about it. And, I still believe that. However, there's kind of been a lot of things that have come about on it. And, in the beginning, when the lawsuit went to trial court, and then, the judge took his leave and decided that he was going to think on it for a little bit. He come back and he ruled in our favor and said that, because our mortgage company was not included in the lawsuit, that they were what's called an indispensable party, whereas they have a vested interest in this, so therefore they were to be harmed, and as such, we couldn't move our house. And so then the plaintiffs took that to the appellate court, and it took the appellate court a long time to decide on it. And about 2 years later, they finally made their decision and told the judge that the judge was wrong and gave him, a bunch of, things to decide on. And then the judge turned around and said, okay, you're right, appellate court. So then he turned around and gave us 60 days to move our home from our property. Well, I don't know about anybody, but I know that I just cannot see us moving our home within 60 days. Well, so our lawyer, he made a motion for things, and basically he was asking the judge for relief from the judgment, and he gave him several reasons why. And one of the biggest reasons is, see, whenever we closed on our property, they made it, they retired the title to the mobile home. And as such, whenever they did that, it turned the property, the home, into what's called as real property, therefore attaching it to the piece of property forever. And if you look up the definition, that's what the definition of real property is. And because the property was given as collateral, which is called land in lieu, the lender is not going to agree to us moving the home. Well, we told the judge all of this, and they just don't seem to care. Nobody seems to care about all of this. So I guess it's going to get interesting come the end of September, whenever their 60 days is up and we still haven't moved the home, because I just don't see us being able to move it. Number one, as I said before, I've led a hard life, and I've had a lot of trials and tribulations through my life. And one of the tribulations I have had is the fact that, I don't have very good credit. I've never been able to make enough money to keep all of my bills paid. And sometimes I do, and I go through spurts there where I was able to keep my credit score, up there close. But then something always happens and brings it back down. Like for instance, this lawsuit, which we had to put out close to $10,000 on. And there's still money to be put out on it. But fortunately, our lawyer has allowed us to make payments. Well, anyhow, there's a whole lot of factors and everything, but basically what it boils down to is, whether we're financially able to move it or not, we can't move it. And it's up to our legal counsel to find a way to convince the court of this. And he hasn't been able to do it yet. And I don't know what I'm going to do about it all. But anyhow, I just wanted to say, well, first of all, the thing I want to say is, if there's anybody out there that knows a lawyer that deals with HOA stuff, send me a message and let me know, because our lawyer, apparently is not very knowledgeable. I thought he was pretty knowledgeable in it, and he's shown quite a bit of knowledge in it, but I don't know. But anyhow, so we definitely need some advice on all of that. And I'm just if anybody out there knows of a lawyer that's sharp on HOA matters, hit me up and let me know. Second of all, I'm not about to ask for money, because one of the things that I'm very proud of is, I don't beg. So I'm not going down that route. That being said, I just, I don't know what to do anymore. You know, we can't move it financially. The lender won't allow us to move it. And thirdly, I feel like we shouldn't have to move it because I paid for that property with my blood, sweat, and tears. And, you know, it just, 15 years of driving a truck and working like I worked, and I really feel like I worked real hard to pay for that land. And I don't appreciate the fact that somebody thinks they can come in there and tell me what I can do with it. So, like I say, I really don't want to move. In spite of the HOA, I love where I live. And I don't want to move. And, that's the way my family feels about it too. We don't want to move. So, but, I said all that to say this. If I don't make a post on here from time to time, it's because I'm kind of, a little bit down on things, and sometimes it takes me a little hard to get out of that funk. But, I'm having a good day today. So, I'm out of the funk. One of the things that I have found is that I enjoy, working in my shop, building things. Y'all know that my dad was a master craftsman. There wasn't a thing in the world that man couldn't do. And if he couldn't do it, he found out a way to get it done. So, and he's instilled some of those traits in me, and I've got to where I kind of enjoy doing some of the things. I've built a desk. I've built. I've been working on my fence. And things like that. I added a shelf to our pantry. So I've been doing a little bit of work here around the house, and trying to get some of these things that I've been neglecting done. But anyhow, I just wanted to give y'all a little shout out and kind of tell y'all what's been going on in my life. And, just say, hey, sometimes I realize that, things are tough all over. And, but I figure out a way to make it happen somehow, because the word quit is not my vocabulary. If I can't get it done, I'll take a break and I'll find out a way to make it happen. So, with that being said, I just want to say, like I said, I'm gonna make it happen. So, y'all stay tuned and watch out. Y'all have a good evening. God bless.